story, and then I'll let you go for me. It's not as funny. It's not that entertaining, but Mark Cuban came to speak at Florida. And this was freshman year, 2012. Me and my buddy Fitz went over. There's nobody there. The place was half full.
Yeah.
And it was a solid sized, amphitheater, right? 2 levels and I don't know, 2 rows in the middle that go up to the main area and then 2 on the side. Like it was decent size. It was half full for Mark, but Mark was great. He put his email up on the projecting screen and he just said, "Hey, listen, if you have a good idea, shoot me an email. I'll read it tonight on the plane back. And if the first 2 lines are good, I'll keep reading." I was like, wow. And at the end, he's like, "I bet half of you didn't even write that down, or half of you will never email me." So he's probably right. Maybe more. 99% probably didn't even email him. But that's the Mark Cuban story. Also, Sydney, my fiance, played women's lacrosse. Shout out Florida women's lacrosse. He went to Cantina, RIP, bar that died in Gainesville. Not died in Gainesville, but went out of business in Gainesville. Place that we love and frequently visited, I should say. And he went there and like closed the bar and bought everyone drinks and showed up in a limo and partied with Florida women's lacrosse all night. Sydney wasn't there, but yeah, Mark Cuban seems like a cool guy and got after it and had a great time. He's got some great stories about being in Indiana and how he started into business and, started as like a kind of a grinder, blue collar guy, ended up being obviously extremely wealthy man, owner of the Mavericks. So Shark Tank known. So
He's a badass dude. Not to up your story, but he was my first. He's my first boss.
Really? See, up my story. Go ahead. This is what the podcast is all about. Let's hear this story. This is great.
This is pretty funny. So college, same thing. Shark Tank, addicted, entrepreneur. I was my major and all that stuff. And back to the hustle juice. So I was drinking some hustle juice, studying for an exam. Pretty wired, pretty into it, and just watched an episode of Shark Tank. And it's funny you mentioned his email. So I was one of the kids that emailed him. And I was like, this is why not? I said, I got nothing to lose. And I think that's the best quote saying in life is why not? You might as well try. So I found his Mavericks email online. I sent him an email. I was just like, hey, and I was like, how do I make this, kind of something that's different? I can't just say I have a business idea or that whatever, I was like, I got to think of something. And so sophomore Mitch, 20-year-old Mitch, thinks it'd be a great idea to have the subject line as "You are a stud." So that was the subject of my email. It just said, "You are a stud." And I sent this ridiculous email, just telling him how big of a stud he was. And at the time, he had just gotten like away from the SEC for insider trading, but he had spent more on the lawyers than the actual fine itself just to stick it to the SEC. He could have, gotten the slap on the wrist, paid the fine. He spent 10 times as much on the lawyers just to stick it to him. And I loved that. And so basically sent him that email. And like 3 days later, I didn't get anything. I was just studying in the library again. I looked at my phone and it said RE, Mark Cuban. He responded. And it was like, thanks for the email, LOL. I have a new app. Let me know what, here's the link. Let me know what App State student think of it. So here I am just reading it. I'm like, looking around, like thinking, one of my friends is playing a joke on me because I had told like 3 friends I'd sent him an email. And, I look at it and I was like, what am I doing? And I respond to him. I was like, is this really Mark? Like, that was my first question. It was hilarious. And his immediate response from him, yep. And then I was just like, I got some questions I got to ask you. Life, what books did I read? Yada, yada, yada. So he started responding. He's like, I read, what was the book? I think it was Good to Great, 0 to 1, like all these books, just like business books. And then I was like, what am I doing again? I was like, give me an internship. Let me work for you. He's like, let's see how you do with CyberDust, which was the app. It's called Dust now. It's like Snapchat meets WhatsApp. And I was all right. And so I basically downloaded the app, created this position for myself called, head of engagement for App State CyberDust. There was no position. He did not hire me as that. And I just started telling people about the app, getting people on the app. And if you look at apps, there's, you can see where people are downloading it, App State. So I got like 500 of my friends that I knew at app in high school and middle school and elementary school and all that. And I said, hey, download this app and write my name in a review on iTunes, the Apple Store. write my name in, the review. I want him to know I'm hustling and that I'm doing this because I want to work for him and that he sees everything. And so literally I got 500 reviews on the Apple store of like, Mitch Purgason told me about this app, love it, yada, 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 whatever. So then he emails me and he's like, I see what you're doing. Make sure you tell people it's not just about the downloads or the reviews, but what the app's for. And I was like, yeah, but I got your attention. That's 500 downloads, like that. He was like, yeah, keep going. He said, you can consider yourself an intern. Let's see what you continue to do. Long story short, I was doing another hustle at the time and kept hustling in that, created the same position at like 5 other schools. 3 months later, I get an email from his right-hand guy and says, hey, Mitch, we want to fly you up to New York. We're putting on the Steve Nash Celebrity Soccer Tournament. We want you to be the face of Cyberdust while you're there, interact with athletes, get them on the app, go to the tournament, and then, you're our guy. So I went from basically at the time driving like a truck, delivering books to schools to going to New York City. I'd never been before. And this is a long story, but probably the funniest part of the story. Great time, like great experience, was there for a while. After the celebrity soccer tournament, Steve had all these people at Cipriani's Wall Street. And, as the owner of Cipriani's, if you've ever been in, Wall Street, Cipriani's, really nice Italian restaurant, great view, huge columns. You get to see the city, the whole street, all Wall Street. It's a huge, great spot. So Dirk Nowitzki's there. Steve Nash is there. Lloyd Pierce, the guy from Atlanta Hawks, is there. All these athletes are there. All these models are there. And I'm like this 20-year-old, 21-year-old, guy, just like, where the heck am I? And I'd never been in New York before. I'd also never had Manhattan before. The guy that worked for Mark at the time was this guy named Omar, and he was kind of my like boss while I was in New York. And he loved messing with me. I was basically his pledge. The easiest way to describe it. So he kept feeding me Manhattans all night. And he told me, it's probably the funniest part of the story. He goes, Mitch, you've worked hard, on, being here, and we've liked what you've done and interacted with everybody. But I do have something for you. I was like, oh God. He said, I want you to go up to the DJ, it's people drinking, having fun, and then just random me, and tell him to put on Fancy by Iggy Azalea. And I want you to dance by yourself in front of everyone here to Fancy by Iggy Azalea. And I was just like, dude, there's no way. Like, if I do that, like, you're going to tell Mark I'm an idiot, and I'll get fired, and I'll never get invited to something like this again. He's like, or if you don't do it, I'll tell him the same thing. And so I just sat there and I was like, oh my God. And so I looked at his buddy. He's a good friend of mine in the fashion industry now. His name's Chris. And I looked at Chris and I was like, is Omar legit? And Chris, like, it's only one way to find out, man. Chris was just laughing because he knows, like, my head is like, well, what am I about to do? So I was like, all right, screw it. So I go up to the DJ. I was like, hey, man, Omar says to put on Fancy by Iggy Azalea. Puts it on. I danced by myself for 3 minutes straight, 4 minutes straight, however long the song was. At the end of the song, there's like this dead silence, deadpan silence. And like Dirk, his wife, like everyone's just looking at me, Steve, and they're just like, and then all of a sudden they go, yeah. And they just like screamed and were like hyping me up. And they're like, that was awesome. And I don't know what I was doing. I was just dancing like an idiot. And the rest of the night, like, I had the owner of Cipriani's like give me a cigar, lit it for me. He was like, that was hilarious. Like, that was so dope. And like all these dudes the rest of the night were like, dude, you're the man. And it was just like this hilarious experience of just like, I was so scared. It was so dumb. It was pretty funny. Omar was making me do that. And it turned the night around for me. I made really good business contacts the rest of the night. And yeah, it's probably my funniest story of just like something random that I have no idea what or why it happened, but it did. And yeah, pretty funny.